All right, thank you everyone for joining us for today's legislative briefing on student basic needs with us, NextGen Policy, and our close partners at Compton College. My name is Samantha Sang. I'm the legislative director and a policy advisor with NextGen Policy, and I will go ahead and kick us off with some introductions from the folks who are bringing this together. So we will start off with you, Arnie. Go ahead if we have you on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Very good. Good afternoon. I think we're in the afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Basic Needs webinar. My name is Arnie Sowell, and I'm the executive director of NextGen Policy. And I think I should say, just for the sake of a number of the folks that are participating in the audience, that I spent 20 years in the state assembly. I was the policy director for 5 different speakers before coming over to help start NextGen. NextGen is a nonprofit organization that focuses primarily on equity and justice issues. And when I talk about equity and justice, I talk about equity and justice from a very, very sort of broad perspective. We work on everything from climate to food and housing insecurity to inclusive democracy issues around voting rights and immigration defense. We work on issues in terms of access to healthcare and criminal justice reform, as well as work on issues in the higher education realm. And in particular, we have focused an awful lot this year, or in our work over the years, on issues related to basic needs. The work that we do work in the bill area, we do work in the budget area, we do regulatory work, a lot of advocacy work. We love to work in coalition and do coalition building work. And we're really, really proud of our relationship and our partnership with Dr. Curry and his team at Compton College, helping us to pull together a policy brief around basic needs. And so with that background, I just wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you for participating. And I think the webinar will be packed with a lot of good information for you. I'll kick it back to you, Sam.
All right. Thanks, Arnie, for getting us started. Dr. Curry, we'll turn to you next for your opening remarks and introduction.
My name is Keith Curry, President and CEO of Compton College. I've been in this position since March 16, 2011. I still remember the date when I was appointed as an interim. During that appointment, I recall saying that every student is a success story. And today I'm excited to be here to talk about what we're doing here at Compton College as relates to student basic needs. I feel that the work we're doing is groundbreaking because we're really focusing in on the student experience with a real intensive focus on student basic needs and ensuring that the budget is available to support these many initiatives that we have at Compton College around basic needs. And I'll be talking about that today in my PowerPoint presentation, but then also being able to share some new ideas regards to how we can continue to push the needle in support of our students.
So thank you, Dr. Curry. And then I'm also going to turn it over to my colleague who will be helping us today as well. Go ahead, and Kimberly.
Hi, thank you all for joining us. My name is Kimberly Sanchez, and I am NextGen's Education Policy Associate. And I'll introduce Heather next.
Wonderful. My name is Heather Parnock. I am the Director of Community Relations for Compton College. And I'm going to back Dr. Curry up with his PowerPoint presentation. And also with us today, we have Paul Medina, who is our Associated Student Government President. He is also a former student trustee for our Board of Trustees. And he is also, you're the student rep for the Board of Governors now. So with that, Paul, if you'd like to do a quick introduction.
Good afternoon. Basically what Heather Parnick said, my name is Paul Medina. I'm the current student body president at Compton College.
All right. Yes. And thank you for being with us today, Paul, and everyone here. And with that, actually, let's go ahead and start our first section of the briefing today. Definitely want to start with hearing from our students and their lived experiences. So thank you very much, Paul. And hopefully some of the other students will be able to join on here shortly, but we do know you're all are very busy. So take it away, Dr. Curry and Paul.
Paul, there you go, Paul. I want to let you go first.
Thank you. I'll begin by actually thanking everyone. Actually, at the start of this webinar today, you were talking about basic needs, how important that is for equity. I mean, I could recall a time, and I'm a non-traditional older student. I've been in the system on and off for a few years, obviously having to work, obviously because that necessity, 'cause it's very important to work. I mean, I remember there being a time which some students needed kind of that extra push, services for basic needs. But nowadays, countless students need those services and basic needs is just something very crucial, something very imperative. I mean, I'm blessed actually being a student at Compton College, which even at the start of the pandemic, which is when I started actually a student at this great school. I mean, Compton was leading the front, was at the forefront of helping out and bridging the digital divide. I mean, I remember at that point, one of the first things that happened during the pandemic, many of our students didn't have laptops or other digital equipment, obviously, to kind of transition to online online education. At that point, laptops were provided, even to this day, hotspots and headphones are actually provided for those students who are still kind of lacking that equipment. But just overall, aside from that, food insecurity, I mean, it's no surprise with the cost of inflation, obviously with prices going up, students are always at the need of food. I mean, luckily, obviously the importance of having and continued support for food programs is at the forefront. In our campus, we have a monthly food bank, which obviously supports students, obviously facing that food insecurity. I mean, aside from that, everyday students have the opportunity to come and actually receive a free meal through every timetable at no cost, a healthy meal, which is something which could help you out. It makes a big difference between being able to focus on your academics at the same time, obviously making sure that you're properly, nourished. Every Wednesday, Compton College has a farmer's market on campus, but actually provides $20 to students to actually come on campus and actually receive, some of the food services that we provide. And then, the partnership with CalFresh is another thing that makes it very distinct here on campus. I know there's agreement between the local CalFresh program and our LA County that allows opportunities for students that may have not even been known about obviously these programs or aware of LA County services, and obviously in the opportunity to receive a stipend, or in this case, obviously your CalFresh card to go purchase other necessities. I mean, I personally have been gracious for these programs and also the increasing programs that we have, but definitely, obviously the increased advocacy for these and others, such as metro relationships that we have with our local public transportation. I mean, at Compton College, we have the opportunity to get the Metro Pass, where we have unlimited stops, we have unlimited rides with Metro and other partnering bus companies to actually get to campus. And housing, I know Compton College actually is scheduled to become the first college in LA County, in a couple of years actually, to have in-campus housing services. I mean, 250 beds approximately, which are going to serve obviously a good amount of the population of our campus. I mean, up until there, I know there's some partnerships that we have with other organizations and nonprofits, but but with that being said, obviously these services and other services are just like really crucial that we need, obviously, to kind of create a more equitable educational system for our students. And I think, for all the support and for the continued advocacy which is needed to increase these programs for students, not just at our campus, but many campuses throughout the state.
So what I would like to do now, if I can I go to my slide deck?
Yes, we can go there.
Perfect, thank you. So the reason why we're here, we work with NextGen policy last year to work on a policy brief regards to the basic needs at Compton College. Why do we do that? Because a lot of times people are asking, Dr. Curry, what are the new initiatives are you doing? in support of basic needs, how you provide those services, how you paying for it, what are the next steps as you move forward. And we thought it'd be very helpful for not just for us, but for other colleges and systems of higher education to know exactly what we're doing at Compton College around basic needs. Next slide. So I want to cover a couple of different areas. I want to talk about our student housing and insecurity and what we're doing. Talk a little bit about food resources, talk about student transportation needs, talk about our healthcare services, eliminating institutional debt, our Mercy Aid delivery and how we deliver Mercy Aid, and then really touch a little bit on our digital divide for students, because I really believe that we can do more working with local county agencies. Next slide. So what is the basic needs at Compton College? Where does it all start? For me, when I look at this work, it started in about 2015, where I had a couple of students come to my office, and they're upset about the college campus not doing enough for students who are homeless, and really looking at what type of programs and services we should be providing to those students as it relates to homeless students on our campus. And it was more than just about having our shower facility available to those students, but what else are we doing for homeless students on our campus? So in 2018, we participated in the Rural College Survey regards to basic needs. And so at that time, we had 59% of our students had food insecurity, 68% had housing insecurity, and 18% was homeless. And you get to see the data regards to the California community colleges at that time and what it looked like. And then in 2019, we did a survey again, and you see the data based off of national, and you see our number of students who are food insecurity decreased the percentage, and our housing insecurity decreased, but our homelessness students increased to 23%. Still, our numbers are higher than the national numbers in those categories. And then the only one that is not higher was the California Community College Survey in 2018. We had 18% homeless and 19% was in California community colleges. Please note this year we're working with our Real College Consortium of California community colleges on another survey this spring regards to housing and food insecurity. So we have updated numbers based off of 2023. Next slide. So when I look at the housing insecurity, and this information is in a brief, I know the staff will put in the chat a copy of the brief, but last year we worked on the last couple of years, we had a shallow subsidy housing assistance program. And that program we're excited about, working with a local agency to provide housing grants to our students. But what we learned in that program was that the amount of paperwork students had to submit was just too much. And it was just having to provide copies of their rental agreement, or if they stay with a family member, provide that documentation. It was too much. And what happened was we discontinued the program this year, and it would just put more money into Mercy Aid. But this gives you a sense of what was happening with those students who participated. So we have 42.9% of students who participated were homeless at some point in the past year. And then compared to 21% of the non-student participants who were enrolled. And then also you saw in the data from our program, we had over 358 students in the program. 64% of those students were female, 35% were males. So our response was that we wanted to build housing. And so at Compton College, we'll be the first community college in LA County to build housing on our campus, which will be 250 beds. Construction will break ground sometime in 2023 this year. But we're really excited about that, being able to provide housing for our students on our campus. And we feel that that's going to be a game changer, especially for our homeless students that we have. Next slide. So when we look at the food resources, which is outlined, and Paul Medina talked about that a little bit, we have a couple different partnerships. We have the partnership with the LA County Regional Food Bank, which once a month they provide boxes of food for our students and also for the community. We also have a farmer's market on our campus where students are provided with $20 vouchers each week, which is a partnership with CLA. That started in November of this year. But just please note that dual enrollment students are also able to participate in this program. This program is funded through our American Rescue Plan money. And then next year, we're going to shift it to some of our, for the farmers market, to our COVID-19 block grant money to be able to continue to support for our students. We also provide free every table meals daily at our campus for our students and also for our employees. This is a very interesting program because our cafeteria is open Monday through Thursday. And so students and employees are taking advantage of it. And we keep track of how many students are taking advantage and also the employees are taking advantage. So one thing to think about from a policy perspective is that we have employees who have basic need, who are dealing with food insecurity and also dealing with housing insecurity. And so how do we support those employees, especially those employees who are at the lower level on our salary schedule? And so providing them free meals a day is helping those individuals. But our partnership with every table is a healthy organization that provides food. And so I have some students who are upset and say, Dr. Curry, we don't get that fried French fries and hamburgers. No, we have healthy meals for our student and our employees. And then we also have a meal delivery program as well, where we're delivering meals to students up to 10 meals per week. And so we're utilizing multiple funds. I mentioned American Rescue Plan funds. We're also utilizing our Basic Needs and Services Fund. We also use our Basic Needs Centers Fund. And then we're also using our Student Equity and Achievement Fund to provide these types of on-campus food resources for our students and also for our employees. And the employee part was paid out of American Rescue Plan. Next slide. Transportation. So there's been a lot of talk throughout the state about transportation and things that should be happening for students and also just in our education and the bill that's mentioned. We're a firm believer in providing public transportation for our students and looking at ways that we can do that. Next slide. So in prior years, working with Metro and our EOPS and CARE program, we offer Metro tap to go passes. Now we offer it to all of our students. And we're excited about that. We're looking forward to seeing what the data looks like at the end of this year of how many students participated and also looking at it from a racial equity perspective. For the last couple of years, we're providing free parking. And then I got a recommendation this morning from my staff that they want to continue the free parking program through next year, which I'm excited about. And then the next one is gas cards. One of the things that we have learned, especially student workers who are going out to our local high schools, is providing them with some type of support as relates to gas cards. What's happening, you start to see students who want to work on campus because they can't afford, especially with high gas prices, for transportation. And so we're providing gas cards for student workers to go out and participate in outreach and recruitment activities. And this is something that we want to keep long term because we start looking at the value of education and other options for students and places for students to work. I think the cost of transportation and gas will be an issue. That's why gas cards are important. Next slide. We have a partnership on our campus with St. John's Community Health. In 2017, we opened a health center on our campus. Think about that for a second. Prior to 2017, Compton College did not have health services on campus. With our partnership with El Camino Community College Districts, students were able to go to El Camino College to be able to participate in health services, which in fact, most students did not do. So we entered a partnership with St. John's in 2019 to be able to provide, 2018 to be able to provide health services on our campus. But one of these that was really beneficial for us was when COVID hit. We were able to we got our testing available for students and employees on campus, but also the vaccine was available. And also the booster has been available. We also been able to offer the monkeypox vaccine as well. This has been a tremendous partnership, but then also we're providing the mental health services. So with the mental health funding we received from the state, we've been able to add perhaps some additional services for mental health provided by St. John's on our campus and also virtually. And then also through our mental health funding, we have a partnership with Virtual Care Group to provide a 24-hour virtual access to general and medical health care services. And so we send weekly announcements to students through our Canvas site to be able to provide them information about mental health services available through Virtual Care Group. And so we're really excited about that, and we're collecting data, and we're gonna be looking at that from a racial equity of how many students take advantage of all the healthcare services. Next slide. Eliminate student debt. There's been a lot of conversation about elimination of student debt, and we're really excited about what we have done at Compton College. We have been able to utilize the federal dollars to eliminate student debt. In the future, we might look at some of the block grant, but this slide gives you a sense of what's available to eliminate student debt and how we can do that, either through the recovery emergency block grants or through the retention and enrollment dollars to reengage individuals. Next slide. So at Compton College, we have for spring 2020 through spring 2021, we eliminated $527,000 worth of debt of our students. What's interesting about the amount of the debt that we alleviated for our students, the average amount that was owed was $41. So we start to do the math of that. You can think about the parking fee for some of those students that they paid that. You can think about the healthcare fee that they're paid. So just think about those small fees, the student representation fee that students were not able to pay, and $41. And then look at the, okay, I'll get back to that. You can look at the amount, the percentage of students who owe, and the amount that students are owed. And it's very interesting how that happened. You also have between 2021 and 2022, we alleviated $700,000 worth of debt. And we also budgeted for this year to alleviate debt as well. So for 3 consecutive years, we've been able to alleviate debt of our students at Compton through federal dollars. Next slide. Got it. Okay, I'm going to get back into, there's a question in the chat, but I'm going to come back to it. Just in 1 second, I want to get to the slide regards to funding. I would say, regards to funding, and the question is that we utilize multiple funding sources, and I think that's important. Heather Parnett, can you put in the chat a copy of our planning document as relates to budget allocation each year? We actually spend a lot of time on our campus going through our planning and budget process, and all funds are on the table, from unrestricted and also restricted funds. And it starts with our planning process, but then also too, working with staff to understand what's allowable for all of our categorical programs to be able to mix and match regards to funding in order to support these programs. So we have a good understanding of all the budgets that are available to us in order for us to support student success. And then we're able to maximize those dollars. Some of these that I say sometimes I say in my speech, that your budgets are your value statements. So what I look at is that if we say we're about student success and supporting basic needs, then our budget has to reflect that. And I go more into that as I move forward in the presentation. This gives you some more information in regards to student debt, but we will continue to be working on student debt and then analyzing that. We also have a report, which I will drop in the chat, regards to the data that we have collected over for last fiscal year, regards to student basic needs, and also what it looks like as from a racial equity perspective. Next slide. Emergency aid. So with the American Rescue Plan dollars, we have been able to alleviate emergency aid for our students. That has been a great program because student emergency aid is important. One of the things that we have done at Compton College, we have a student resources application where students are able to say if they need financial support or any other type of services they might need that connects with basic needs. And our student equity achievement department, they're following back up with those students in regards to what services they might need. And then also with American Rescue Plan dollars, our staff has been able to provide emergency aid to students based off of students who are on financial aid or based off of students who state that they have a need. We have also given out money to students who are in dual enrollment programs. And what's interesting about that is that we've been able, this year, we're providing $500,000 to support dual enrollment students. As we look at community colleges increasing amount of students who are enrolled in dual enrollment, we have to make sure that those students are being able to provide with some types of emergency aid because they also have needs as well. And in the chat at some point, I will drop in. We had a report that was done with Ed Equity regards to our initial emergency aid grants that we gave about 1.5 years ago, which is the basis of why we're doubling down our efforts, because students told us that they had needs and that we gave out $114, and that made a significant difference for students, $114. Next slide. Closing the digital divide, we've been able, and Paul Medina talked about this earlier about the laptop loan program and also Wi-Fi hotspots. We have been able to provide that to our students, and we continue to order additional laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots. We have been using American Rescue Plan dollars, but we're also utilizing student equity achievement dollars. My goal is to continue to have laptops available for students every semester here at Compton College. This is going to be a tricky one, how we move forward, not just at Compton, but also at other community colleges, because a lot of colleges utilizing their American Rescue Plan dollars to support the laptop programs. But as technology expires, you have to purchase new laptops. And what does that look like as you move forward in the future? And then also Wi-Fi hotspots. I have said this in speeches before that Wi-Fi hotspots are great. However, at the end of the day, it's about having Wi-Fi. It's about having Wi-Fi in students' homes. one of these I learned during COVID was when students turned their cameras off. And I wondered, like, why is the camera off? And a student told me, said, Dr. Curry, the reason why my camera's off, and not to be disrespectful, but my camera is off because multiple people are utilizing the Wi-Fi at my house, and I want to be able to stay in the meeting and not get kicked out. By turning my camera on, by turning my camera off, I'm able to sustain my internet. So that gave me a different perspective as related to that. But also what gave me another perspective was I had students say, hey, we need headphones because we have multiple people in the house. We need to be able to focus and hear. We can't just have a laptop and Wi-Fi hotspots and not have headphones. And that's another thing that we provide. But I think in the future, we need to consider how do we provide laptops for our community colleges and making sure that we have funding for that, but also what's our long-term solution regards to internet at the homes for our students. Next slide. So here are some of the recommendations that was in the report, and I can share as well. Is like I think we have the effective strategies to address student basic needs, require dedicated federal, student, and state funding. We need to ensure, and don't get me wrong, the state of California has been great regards to basic needs and having the flexibility for us to be able to support our students. And I'm totally grateful for that. But we still need to be looking at some what works and what does not work. What I see working for me is the elimination of student debt. That has been very helpful. Emergency aid has been very helpful to our students, but also these food resources for students. Seeing our student athletes who are on campus every day go to the cafeteria and receive services, and these are males of color, is huge because they don't have to worry about, filling out an application about how poor they are. They're able to receive those services just by showing their ID. But you have to understand your federal state funding to be able to do that. Also, I believe that colleges should prioritize meeting the basic needs of their students when making decisions. And at Compton College, that is a priority, but make sure that we're providing those services and the decisions are based off of data. And then also, too, we have to make sure that we're disaggregating the data to ensure that we meet the needs of our students, but really looking at race and gender. One of the new programs that we're implementing at Compton this year is a guaranteed income program. And Heather can put in the chat some information about that program and what we're doing. But we looked at that program. We have 100 students who are participating. I want to say 68% of students in that program are African-American females with one child. For a campus that's 64% Latinx, to see that high number of African-American students who are on CalWorks or in our EOPS and CARE program, who are requesting services based off of the guaranteed income program, where we're providing the students 6 checks, three checks of $500 in the fall, 3 checks of $500 in the spring. But then also students are maximizing other services on campus. But we have a cohort of students who are in a guaranteed income program, which is funded this year with some of our EOPS and CARE dollars provided by that CARE program, and then the other half being provided by the American Rescue Plan dollars. But we've been able to really look at that program as a program that's, for me, is a best practice of what can we do that's sustainable, especially when we start talking about the value of education for our students. And next slide. And I would take questions.
And thank you, Dr. Curry, for going in depth on the policy brief. And right before we move to Q&As, I do want to let the audience know that we are going to be moving into that section next. So please feel free to start putting those into the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll be going to that section next. Did want to just highlight a few things because that was a lot of information, right? We do know that the needs that students have are multiple, and there's a lot more than what we've covered here even today. But in the policy brief, at least that we've done with Compton, right, we focused on like 7 main areas, focused on housing, food, transportation, healthcare, institutional debt, emergency aid, and closing the digital divide. So again, those are just the items that we covered. Dr. Curry did go into some other items that Compton is looking into to expand on the work on student basic needs here. And at NextGen ourselves, we've been looking into these issues kind of at a statewide focus. And we're excited about our partnership here with Compton because we are looking to go into the overlapping areas of how these issues impact students. And so we've done work in the digital divide area. We're looking to join up on student housing resources. We've done a lot of work on food insecurity and will continue to work on that as it affects students at the college campuses. Continuing to look at healthcare resources and really digging into institutional debt this year. Again, thank you, Dr. Curry, for sharing all these innovations that Compton has done, and really want to impress, especially to our legislative staff members here on the call with us today, what can be done when there's bold leadership that focuses policies and budgeting around student-centered, data-driven, available resources, for how they make their budgeting decisions, given what's out there already in terms of what the state has done. And so we do encourage the legislature, please take a look here. Certainly these innovations at Compton has had a meaningful impact on students' lives. And so we do urge for that continued dedicated funding for student basic needs. And so if legislative staff is here listening and you are interested, if you think your bosses are interested in exploring this area, please get a hold of us. And we are happy to continue this conversations with you as well. And with that, definitely do want to go to Q&A now. I will turn it over to my colleague, Kimberly.
So since we're switching over to Q&A portion for the remainder of the webinar, feel free to send in your questions through the chat or the Q&A window, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. But just to start off, Dr. Curry, is there anything else you'd like to add about funding sources, in particular, any on legal regulatory hurdles to braiding funding sources?
I don't know if I would say legal. I think it's the need for educators to be trained and understand what you can and cannot do based off of legislation. So right now, one of the things, I give Chancellor's Office credit, they give us an update each, almost a couple every other month, regards to the different categorical programs and how you can spend those dollars. That's been helpful, but I'm always concerned about just understand the rules and how we train people to understand the rules. One of these that I'm looking at regulatory regards to the COVID-19 block grant and also the outreach and enrollment one is how can I utilize for guaranteed income, if I can utilize those funds for guaranteed income programs. And I don't know. And that's one of the things that we're looking at this year is how to do that. And then also if the funding for enrollment and retention dollars are included in this year's budget, to be able to really do a focus in on utilize those dollars to support these type of endeavors, because you can enhance it. Because last year's money was one time, and I wish that money was ongoing, because I do think the institutional debt and emergency aid, there needs to be some type of funding pot or funding source to support colleges as we do this type of work.
And is there a ranking to which support programs were most beneficial by students? Or can you say which were the most critical supports?
Emergency aid. Emergency aid was the most critical support for our students. We saw last year we had over 1,300 students in the fall semester who participated in emergency aid. And then in the spring semester, we had over 1,800 students. Majority of the students who participated in emergency aid grants, 67% of those students in the spring were females, and in the fall, the number of females was at 64%. So emergency aid was number one. The second most common was the housing referrals and being referred for housing programs on our campus. That was big. And then also the cafeteria was highest in the spring. We didn't start the food program until basically in the spring of 2022, where we started providing the free meals for students. And now this year has just been students are taking advantage. So we anticipate, whether I get our data for this year, that the number one will be the food service provided by the cafeteria.
And what What has been the most effective way to outreach and communicate with students about the services that Compton College offers?
I would tell you, we're using several different ways to communicate to students. One is we're using our LMS platform, which is Canvas, to be able to send announcements out to students. We also have text messaging capability to text our students, and we're also able to send out emails. I had a conversation with one of our students last week about what's the effective way to communicate, and they get a number of emails from us. And I don't know if that's a good idea to continue to send so many emails. And so I think we might need to shift our approach to students to be able to provide text messages to students regards to services that are available that link to the website with the more information. But I think we're sending too many emails to students because once you're getting 6 or 7 emails from the college, I think some students are overwhelmed with other stuff that they're doing as well. But Canvas has been helpful too, being able to do announcements on Canvas. And we've been very strategic with that, where we're trying to schedule and coordinate when we announce certain things on Canvas, so then the students are not being overwhelmed.
And one of the questions from the Q&A box says that, does Compton College have MOUs or partnerships with the county? For example, is the college able to access data from the county as to how many students successfully applied to CalFresh? And how is the campus-county relationship?
That's a great question. Heather would drop in the chat more information about what we're doing with the county. I don't know who asked that question, but thank you very much. In the policy brief, we talk about this. We have a partnership, first of its kind, with the LA County Department of Public Social Services, where we're sharing data regards to CalFresh. So our students have to complete a waiver if they want to participate in the program. And then once they complete the waiver, then we're able to share the data with the county, and the county will tell us if those students are on CalFresh or not. Then with our Basic Needs Center money, we hired a full-time student service advisor whose sole responsibility is CalFresh. So this person does presentations throughout the campus about CalFresh, but then there's also follow-up with students who are on CalFresh and who are not on CalFresh to make sure the ones who are not on CalFresh to sign them up for CalFresh. We also code them in our system, so we're able to follow back up with the students as ways to success and retention. When we first started this program and the first data sharing, the first time we did it, we had an increase in number of students from that who shared data by 10%. That number increased of students who are now on CalFresh after we found out. Now it's after 30 days. And so this partnership is the first of its kind, and I think that's helpful because the issue I see with CalFresh is that we do a lot of recruitment and say sign up for CalFresh, but it's not really targeted. And so my goal and my hope is that at one point with our CCFI application, we could be able to have something statewide where people are able to share data and students could be able to check off on the application that they want to share their data as relates to CalFresh. And then we can be able to follow up with those students at any of the colleges, so students are able to get on into a CalFresh program within whichever county, but really focusing on CalFresh. But the data sharing has been helpful because I was concerned when I saw in our financial aid office, the county's CalFresh people were here, no one was showing up. You were hoping that students would show up in the financial aid office. Now we're doing targeted work with a full-time staff person to support it, and we're paying for that through our Basic Needs Center money. And you have a copy of the data sharing agreement, which is dropped in the chat.
And what has been the most significant challenge on the ground in trying to provide students with basic needs?
Time. I think time, because we're, last night at a farmer's market, I was talking to a student who was actually going to be at another event we had a couple weeks ago about basic needs. And I was talking to the student about, the student has a child, so the child is in childcare. The student, when they're on campus, they do check out our cafeteria to get a free meal. But the student comes on campus every week for the farmer's market. And I asked the question, I said, so how are you able to make this all work? She says, I just have to find time to do it. And so not only do students have to find time to be able to access all the services with all what's happening with them in the classroom and also their personal lives, but also our employees have to have the time to really be strategic and innovate, to be able to innovate, to be able to do this work. I think we're doing so much in California community colleges and also at Compton College where we don't have enough time to really do more and support our students. And I wish we just had more time so we could really be able to connect with our students. And one of the ways I think we'd be able to connect with our students is really thinking like, how can we have faculty and staff being able to call students who are dealing with basic needs and provide that support? But it takes time, right? How can we have more events on campus to interact with our students in regards to their basic needs? But it takes time. It takes time for staff to be able to read legislation and understand legislation to be innovative. So how do we create that time for everyone to be around basic needs, to be able to provide more support for our students, but also crafting time for our students to be able to receive those services? And when I look at our students being able to receive those services in waste of time, I look at the guaranteed income program as an initiative, because if we're able to provide them that check, maybe we can get a little bit more of their time in order to be able to provide more of those services. But just trying to figure out a way to provide that time for individuals. And then also, besides time, I would add to this, it's just really understanding the budgets. And so today I was in a meeting with my chief financial officer, just really looking at our American Rescue Plan dollars to see where we're at before the June 30th deadline, because I don't want to return any money, and making sure that our plan is in place, what's our budget to actual, but really monitoring our budgets throughout the year to ensure that what we say we're going to spend our money on as relates to basic needs is spent, and then whatever is not spent, we're able to revert and we're able to pivot and move those dollars somewhere else to ensure that students are receiving those services.
And another question we got from the chat box says, are you able to share information about programs or services that you guys have for student parents? For example, will any of the student housing that is being built be appropriate for student parents?
Yeah, that's the goal, and we're working through that, and also working through legislation in regards to it. And so the goal was to have some of the housing available for student parents. And so we're just working through how that would look in the rooms for that. But we're providing with our guaranteed income program, we're hitting parents, right? And we're hitting Black parents. And so we really want to look at that. We also have a childcare center on our campus, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to renovate the second childcare facility. So we have 2, so we'll be able to increase the number of students, increase the number of childcare availability on our campus for our students. So we're really trying to address the support for parents, but it's through some of our current categorical programs, and then also through our Child Development Center, and now with our guaranteed income program.
And can you talk a bit more about the farmers market? Like, how did you guys get that to happen?
The staff figured it out. Actually, it happened. I was at an event for CalFresh. It was a kickoff event last spring with our supervisor, Holly Mitchell. And in those conversations at the event, we were talking about the farmers market, and she was telling me how you can utilize farmers market, the market match, CalFresh. And there was a partner there, which was CLA. And Holly Mitchell, the supervisor, former state senator, mentioned that Compton College will have a farmers market. And she said it publicly. So then we've been working since that day to make it happen. And we have great staff. And the staff figured it out, working with CLA of how to offer the farmers market. We also make sure that we had funds to support it through American Rescue Plan. And the reason why we started at the beginning with that support was we wanted to make sure that it was financially stable, right? And now I look at the needs of our students. When I see dual enrollment students who are on our campus, and they come on our campus just on Wednesdays to be able to participate in the farmers market, and they're buying eggs, they're buying milk, they're buying things that they need, that's when you start to really look at equity and the changes that we're making that benefit students. And so I'm really excited about the farmers market. I'm really excited about where it can go in the future, not only supporting our community, but supporting our students, including dual enrollment students.
And how can legislatures act to help colleges and universities support the basic needs of their students?
I think a couple ways. One is being open to new and creative ideas and seeing if there's a legislative need as relates to that. 2 is flexibility, ensuring that legislation that comes out regarding basic needs provide the maximum amount of flexibility financially for colleges. And what I mean by flexibility is that we should not have to be hampered by certain rules. Oh, you only can use this program for this one type of student. I think we need to have that flexibility where if it's based off of student needs. And I'm always looking for flexibility. So if we have to use multiple pots of funding to support a particular program, we have that flexibility to do so. When I look at our guaranteed income program, able to use EOPS and CARE, also able to use American Rescue Plan dollars. When we look at the food programs that we have on campus, we're using multiple pots of funds on our campus to support students as it relates to food. And having that flexibility for food has been very helpful. We're not all using American Rescue Plan dollars. We're able to use COVID-19 block grant dollars. We're able to use outreach and recruitment dollars, retention dollars to support students for food. We're able to use basic needs and services, and also we're able to use basic needs centers. So I just gave you 5 different funding sources that can be able to support students and their basic needs as it relates to food. But really having a good understanding of that and training staff at our local colleges to be able to know these different pots. So then if you have more flexibility, you can be able to service more students. And at Compton College, our goal is that all students should be able to receive these types of services. And that happens because of flexibility.
So if there's any more questions, if you guys could please drop them in the chat or in the Q&A box. And if not, then I'll pass it back to my colleague, Samantha.
Thanks, Kimberly, and thanks everyone for your great questions. Those certainly help move the conversation along here on student basic needs. And if there are additional questions too, when you registered, you have our contact information. So if there's any questions that we didn't get to, you would like to talk more about it, please feel free to reach out to us at NextGen Policy, and we will be happy to work with you on that. And yeah, I think at this point, if there's no other questions, do you want to call on any of our panelists if they'd like to do any last minute remarks here? If not, then thank you everyone for joining us today for this legislative briefing on student basic needs. Thank you again to our partners at Compton College, Paul for joining us as a student and sharing his perspective, and all of you for taking the time today here. Again, if you're interested in anything that we touched on here, please reach out to us, and for Ledge staff, we're certainly happy to provide further details as well. Thank you everyone for joining us and have a great rest of your day.